Welcome to NC Spin Perspectives, opinions from thought leaders across our state. We're delighted to be able to get perspectives from Superintendent of Public Instruction, June Atkinson. June, we recently found out the legislature did away with the traditional method for funding enrollment growth. Everybody's tossing around terms like average daily membership and so forth like that. Explain to us what ADM is and how it's calculated, how it's currently calculated.
Well, although this is a complicated subject, basically it means that by the 10th day of any school year or the 20th day or whatever day is specified, you would determine the number of students that you've had on the average to that point. So it really is a count primarily of the number of students you're averaging over a certain period of time.
Now, larger school systems, Wake, MEC, Guilford, some of these larger school systems are saying this isn't a fair gauge because, particularly in the early part of the year, we've got kids moving into our state, moving into our classrooms as late as December and January, and here you're locking in at the end of the 10th day or 20th day. Is there a better way of calculating ADM?
Well, I believe that the issue that the school districts superintendents have is not necessarily the way that we calculate average daily membership, but the issue is they're not knowing, based on this current legislative session, not knowing whether they will get funds for student growth. Since for many, many years, we have had in the budget that continues year after year a way,
just an automatic
increase based on the number of new students that you have in the school.
But some of the legislators are saying, wait a minute, that's not fair, because the truth of the matter is, particularly in the last few years, the enrollment growth hasn't matched what we have given them so far as increased funding is concerned. And then when we turn around and reduce the funding to actually adjust for the actual average daily membership, right, schools claim they've had their budgets cut.
Well, of course, as I mentioned earlier, budgets are very complicated, but there are ways to be very transparent in what you just described. You know, in accounting, we have adjusting entries, and those entries are just adjustments to the funding. And I believe that there is a way where you can make all of that information transparent in a base budget or a continuation budget. It is not in the best interest for our schools not to have some assurance that the growth in their schools will be funded.
Well, Nelson Dollar, the House Appropriations Chair, says, wait a minute, of course we're going to fund enrollment growth. We always have. We're going to continue doing it. We're just not going to do it the same way. He says that enrollment growth actually should be included in the expansion budget, not the continuation budget, because it is an increase in spending.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Well, I understand his wanting to have transparency. I'm with him when it comes to transparency, but what it does is that it makes the student growth have to compete with all of the other needs of our state, such as teacher salaries, Medicaid, transportation. And we knew for many, many years the textbooks funding was a part of the continuation budget. That was removed last year.
And now we see school systems that are complaining about the fact they don't have any money to buy textbooks.
Right, and we were averaging about $65 per student for textbooks when it was in the continuation budget, and now it's about $15 per student. So our average daily membership determines the formulas for so many other types of funding. And of course I appreciate Representative Dollar wanting to have transparency. However, there are ways to have transparency without taking away the assurance.
So what's your recommendation as to how this should be done?
Well, we could do one of two things. We could insert that phrase back into the budget to say that we will base the budget on average daily membership, or we could go a third route to say that the state will commit itself to funding student growth year after year.
Or perhaps maybe they could take two readings on ADM and use the combination of the two to determine funding.
Yes, and we work very closely with the General Assembly with our projections. And so there are times that we give them figures where they can make the adjusting entry in the continuation budget. And if people are concerned that it looks as if that is a cut to public education, then there are communicative ways that we can use to get that message to the people of North Carolina.
I think they think they're getting a bad rap sometimes, that they've cut education budgets again, because they hear enough about that as it is.
Right.
And that's not actually what's going on there.
No, it's just the adjustment. And we've grown 55,000 students over the last years. And if we had not had that enrollment growth, we would really have
Well, they've done the
difficulty
same thing for universities. I mean, did they handle enrollment growth in universities in the same manner?
Well, it's very different for the public schools compared to the universities. If universities do not get additional funding, they can deny admission to any university. If a university...
Constitutionally, you can't do that.
No, and universities can also increase tuition within certain boundaries. Public school education is free, and so we do not have means to make adjustments if we do not have substantial funding for student growth.
Thank you for being with us, June Atkinson, and thank you for watching NC Spend Perspective, or videos all during the week on ncspend.com.